Hello, hi, welcome. I'm starting to feel a little bit weird. I hadn't said anything yet, and I was like when I make these, I usually I make them or stream them, and then I just like immediately upload them to IGTV or whatever the hell after I'm done. So like, I was thinking about like, well, should I maybe not be talking a ton like in the very beginning, because like it probably seems weird for me to be talking to myself, but then whatever. I was just in my feelings for a second there. How is everybody? How are you? I know I'm feeling a little because of Breonna Taylor's murderers not being charged. Feeling a little like hopeless about that. Not sure what little old me can do. Besides, things are, the world is, yeah. I didn't mean to start this off on like a sad note. I don't want that necessarily, but, yeah, just, being honest. I've been thinking a lot about, hey, hi, welcome. I've been thinking a lot about, my friend that you know, Johnny, sent me an amazing article that was in, the online publication, by, shit, I knew I would forget their name if I didn't, oh no, but Mia something, they're a disability activist and, trans person, I forget exactly how they identify, but they were talking a lot about, they talk a lot about, like, ugliness and, like, honesty and ugliness, and, like, it's something I really connect with and want to be more. Like, it sounds weird, but, like, I endeavor to be more ugly in my, you know what I mean? Is this making any, like, honest. Ugliness in honesty. You know what I mean? Vulnerability, all of that stuff, what have you. So, like, every time I think about, like, well, like, I read that article and like, I read that article and, it just had me really thinking about, like, ways that I police my own ugliness and, my hair. I'm never happy with my hair and all this stuff, and, like, how I present myself on here and stuff. And so, yeah, if I can remember, I will link that in the bottom of this, because it doesn't have to do with the topic that I'm talking about, but it has to do with everything. You know what I mean? These afternoon tea times, as much as I love them, they really make me feel so extra neurodivergent. And, like, I don't know if that makes sense to anybody else, but it's just like, my brain just goes like in 80 different directions, and my speech patterns are all over the place, and so I'm just sort of like, yeah, but I asked you all how you were and you didn't respond to me, but that's okay. I'm not mad. We're all here together. Thank you for being here. Yeah, so this week I wanted to talk about food and eating, because Usually every week I have a really hard time picking a topic because a little insight to how my brain works. Like I've been talking about this a lot lately too, especially with the neurodivergent thing. My brain, we live in an era that's very consent driven, which is great. It's fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I'm not coming for PC politics or anything like that. Absolutely not. But as I've realized more about myself as a person, like my brain does not always work in the ways of, well, what do you feel like? What do you want? Do you want this or do you want that? Do you like this or do you like that? My brain doesn't always work that way, and especially lately, I get very overwhelmed by choice, and options, and my brain doesn't always go like, oh, I want that, so I'll do that. It's more like, what are the implications of all these things, and like, if I do this now, what about later? So for me, it's not just like, I like this topic, so I'll do it this week. It's like, well, if I do it this week, what if it's more accurate to do it next week because I have this to say, or what if I blah, 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 blah. Like, it's, yeah, it's a whole thing. But, this week didn't struggle that hard because it was really easy because it's something that I have been talking about, like on Instagram and stuff, and I almost said in my real life. Instagram is my real life. In my analog life work, in my digital and analog life, sure, let's use that, which is food, because we all have to eat, we all get hungry, we all eat food, but my relationship with food has really been something else since I've been on tea, and I hadn't really done a full video on it. I had done like sort of body image stuff, but I wanted to do one like entirely on hunger and appetite as related to hormone replacement therapy. And I said, I didn't promise it, but I said that maybe I'd have a little research in this video, and I did do some research. I want to put that out there right now that I did. But the hard thing is that, it may not be a surprise to anybody, it shouldn't be, that the information on hormone therapy and trans anything is not very vast. So a lot of it is like sort of informal. A lot of it is very like, there aren't a lot of like blind tests and case studies and whatnot. It's like a lot of like, trans and gender nonconforming people doing their own research, like polling people on their Instagram, stuff like that. And again, if I can keep my eye on the prize, I'm gonna upload or attach a link to this when I upload it, about this article that I found, that was in line with this, where it's all about hunger and food cravings while on hormone replacement therapy. And so before I get there, I'm getting ahead of myself. So when I started hormone replacement therapy, there are resources out there. So like there are sort of like websites where you can look and see like the documented effects of testosterone. That being said, there are things that we know happen because they happen in people who go through puberty, who have high levels of testosterone in their body naturally. Their body produces it. So like, if you will, cis male puberty. So we know certain things. So like, we know that hunger increases in almost everybody who starts T. And forgive me, I don't know a lot about estrogen simply because that hasn't been my experience, and I obviously haven't done a lot of research on estrogen because it's not what I take. But I assume that there is about equally the amount as there is on T. But I also can talk to my experience having estrogen naturally in my body as going through quote unquote cis female puberty, and what have you. So there's things like increase in appetite, body weight changes, so not necessarily just increase or decrease in weight. It's also like weight distribution, so where your weight falls on your body. There's also, obviously hair growth. There is thickening of the vocal cords, which makes your voice lower. On a side note, does my voice sound lower? I don't know. I feel like people tell me every week, but I also feel like it differs week to week, and it hasn't really like cracked, so I just don't know. Did anyone see that? I just splashed tea all over my face. Wow, I'm so thrilled that this tea is only lukewarm now. Wow. Oh, that's a look. Anyway, so we know what hormones do because that's why people take them. We know what they do. We want those effects, so we take them. Now, the thing that we can't predict is the fact that literally, just as gender, hormones are everyone's body reacts differently to hormones, and everyone's body, and some people have like hormone related, what's the word? Hormone related conditions or what have you. So whether it's like thyroid stuff, PCOS, which is in people who have is it just ovaries, uteruses, polycystic ovarian syndrome. There it is, ovaries. Nailed it. Which can cause you to produce more testosterone. There's people with androgen insensitivity syndrome, which means that your body is resistant to testosterone, and it immediately turns testosterone into estrogen, like quicker than usual. So like my body will turn testosterone into estrogen. That's why I have to keep taking it. That's the point of consistently taking it. Is because if you stop, eventually certain things will revert. Yada yada yada. That's not what this video is about. Let's keep going. So it's different in everybody's body, and there are a lot of things that we don't know, like all the particulars about, and we can't tell you all the particulars about, especially if you're on low dose tea, which is kind of a misnomer. It's what everyone calls it because there's no real like. Maybe a better word for it would be slow dose tea, because low dose implies that you're not getting the full effect of something, right? That's not true with low dose tea. I will get all of the effects on tea that I would get if I were taking 0.5 milliliters a week as opposed to 0.1. It just means that it'll take me much longer to get there. So I will get all of the changes if I let it go that long. I will get all the changes. But being on a low dose for me is about seeing those changes slowly as they happen and being able to stop before I get changes, or before I get too far into changes that I really don't like. So, but that's the thing, is that a lot of people on low dose tea, sometimes being on a really low dose of a hormone can kind of wreak havoc on certain parts of your body. Like some people's mental health, they say, like goes up and down and up and down and up and down. I haven't really seen that. I don't think. I mean, it's also hard to tell because I obviously started tea during the pandemic, which everyone is anxious and having a hard fucking time of it. All different various factors. Like, it's really hard to be able to pin down and say, like, this is what's causing it. But another thing, I'm getting there, I was getting there. Another big thing that can happen and be sort of like squiffy is appetite, or at least I've noticed. Because what I knew about tea when I started was you're going to start tea and you're going to get hungry. because that's what happens to almost everyone that you hear who talks about being on tea. You start tea and you get hungry, you get ravenous, and it makes sense because if we've all heard the trope of like, you're a growing boy, and like, teenage boys just eat people out of house and home. There's something about testosterone that, I was looking a little bit into this, they think it might increase, there's leptin and there's gremlins, I don't know. Leptin, I think, is the appetite suppressant, and ghrelin is the hormone that is the appetite accelerant. Is that the opposite? Accelerant. Yeah, so there's like an increase in ghrelin and you get hungrier. That's just a thing that happens. To almost everybody. Like, I'm sure there's someone out there who's like, I didn't get hungry at all, but, whatever. So I expected this. What I did not expect is that for my entire life, as far as I can tell, except for when, I was sick, or, I'm sure you all have had these times, where almost every single time that I was hungry, I wanted to eat. And you have, things that you like, things that you don't like, things that you're in the mood for, things that you're not in the mood for. Sometimes when you're sick or when I'm really anxious or whatever, I know I'm hungry, but I'm not in the mood to eat. I've been having that all the time. And it's such a mind fuck, to be honest, because for so long it had been like, I'm hungry, I eat. And it's hard to kind of divorce this from like, body dysmorphia and disordered eating habits. I don't think I necessarily ever suffered from an eating disorder. I was never diagnosed with anything like that, but I definitely, being in a large body or larger body, and, going through all of that, constantly dieting all the time. Like, I definitely have some disordered eating behaviors. Almost everyone on earth has some sort of disordered eating behaviors. It's very complicated, but but for the most part, it's, besides dieting and trying to restrict my food intake and all those things, for the most part, it's been, I'm hungry, I eat. And when that happened, I'm not a big, in my day-to-day life, I don't think I tend to eat a lot. I tend to be big on snacks and less big on like big meals as an adult, because if no one else is making my meals, it's me making my meals. So it's like it's much easier for me to have like a bunch of ready-made like snacks and things like that I can just pick up and like throw in my mouth and eat, and then I'm good for another like hour or so. So T said, fuck that, and wrecked like all of my previous like eating habits. It wasn't just, oh, I'm hungry and I have to eat more food. So now it's become, I am hungry almost constantly. So I am hungry, it feels like I might have an hour break from being hungry. It feels like I eat and then I get like an hour reprieve and then I have to eat again. So there's that part of it. Then there's the next part of it, which is, okay, I'm hungry, let's go find something to eat. And typically, you go grocery shopping, you plan meals, you buy things that you know that you like and that you will eat. So I do that, right? Have no issue doing that. Well, it is hard to go grocery shopping as an adult. I don't know if anyone on earth has figured it out. I certainly feel like I haven't figured it out. I constantly feel like I don't have enough food in the house. I constantly feel like I spend too much or I spend too little, and yet I never have enough for meals. Like, it feels like an equation that I can never quite figure out. But, that's a separate thing. Anyway, so I buy these things, and then I get hungry, and I go into the kitchen, and I look around, and I think, oatmeal. Like oatmeal. Like, when I think about, do I like oatmeal? Do I like to eat oatmeal? Yes. And then I look at it when I'm hungry, and I'm like, no. I'm like, okay, we'll pass on the oatmeal. And so then I go, okay, how about eggs? And I'm like, no. I'm like, okay, great. We're okay. Let's try something else. And it just goes on like this forever. And then it becomes me trying to convince myself that I have to eat something and that something will taste good. And it's me just like staring into the fridge being like, I have all these things that I bought ingredients for because I know that I like to eat them, and yet I don't want to eat them. And it fluctuates. There was like a month where I didn't want to eat anything. It was really bad. It was like, nothing is good. I'm not craving anything. And my partner would be like, well, do you want to order something? Like, is there something you're really craving? And I was like, no, literally no. Not a thing on this earth sounds appealing to me. Which is really odd, and especially when you are hungry. Your tumbly is rumbling, and you're hungry, and yet you have absolutely no desire to eat. And I don't mean that in like a dysmorphic way, where it's like, oh, I can't eat because I'm fat. It's sort of, or I'm, it was more like, there is nothing on earth that I would wish to eat. And I would get a few bites into anything and be like, I can't finish this. And it's so funny because I just recently remembered, and I told my mom the other day, she told me that when she was pregnant with me, she used to get, she was ravenous. She was eating for two. So she would get so hungry, and she'd order a giant plate of food at a restaurant, right? And then the food would come, and she would lose all her appetite. She'd be like, I can't eat this. And I always thought that was wild. And I was like, wow, what a wacky story, Mom. And then it happened to me, which is so weird because, the hormones associated with pregnancy aren't necessarily the hormones related to transitioning with testosterone. But I was looking into this article. Like I said, I was doing all this Googling. And first of all, most of the Googling was when you Google, like, hormones, appetite, leptin, ghrelin, like, all the shit that comes up is how people are, quote-unquote, battling obesity, which is like, I'm not having this. The obesity epidemic is a lie. Like, I'm just gonna throw it out there. The way they've pandered it to us, and the way they've framed it, and the way that they've like structured it is not true. Just how it is. Like, it's a lot more complicated than just people are broken and eating until they're huge. Like, that's so not at all what is happening, and it's so demonizing and horrible and fatphobic, and it's bad. And so I was hit with all these articles, and I was like, it's people trying to like hack their hormones and figure out, they'd be like, there's this one that's like, this woman went to her doctor and she couldn't lose weight, but they couldn't find anything wrong with her except it was her hormones. And it's like, imagine like your natural hormones being saying like, oh, your hormones are working against you, your body's working against you because your body's too big or whatever the fuck. Like, it was just a nightmare. I was like, absolutely not. So it was really frustrating trying to look for this in the first place. So then I typed in, trans or transitioning or hormone, because even when you type in hormone replacement therapy, you get stuff about women on estrogen who are in menopause, which is great, fine, love it for you. But not what I'm looking for, and often also tied to weight, because hormones, whether testosterone, estrogen, or the secondary hormones, things like spirulactone and progesterone and things like that, are tied to hunger and weight gain and weight loss and fat deposits and where it lays on your body and things like that. It was all that, and I was like, get out. I don't want to know that. And so I had to type in trans, and like most of the articles were like, we don't know shit. I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like, I was like, that's why I'm looking it up. It's just really frustrating, because it's like when every time I look at a fucking study about something and it's like men versus women, and then you're just sitting there like, I guess I don't apply. So I did find, however, this article, and I'm gonna link it if I can remember it. I'm going to. Accountability. I'm going to. Okay. So I'm gonna link this article that this person was talking about how apparently, I did not know this, it's become like a meme in the trans femme community, and I would love to ask. I literally just found this out before I started this video, but I want to ask some of my trans femme friends, like, if this is true, or if they, experience this. But it's become like a meme in the trans femme community that and people taking estrogen and Spiro and whatnot to crave pickles. And that's so funny to me. And it was talking a lot about how, like, that's a big thing in, like, pregnancy. A lot of, that you've heard the trope of, like, pregnant women really wanting pickles and ice cream, you know what I mean? Because your hormones are all over the place. And it makes sense. And it's so funny. And they've done a little bit of research about it. They think that, because spirolactone is a hormone blocker. I don't know if it itself is a hormone. I don't think so. But a lot of people who take estrogen, or women who take, or just people, people who have a lot of estrogen, I will say, in skincare communities, because I've been in them a lot because of my battles with acne, there have been a lot of cis women and femme-identified people who take spirolactone, because it is an androgen suppressant, and sometimes androgens can be causes of acne. So that's an interesting thing. So some people who take estrogen almost always take Spiro also, because estrogen doesn't suppress testosterone. It's just a hormone on its own. And estrogen will be converted to testosterone in a person's body who naturally makes testosterone, yada, yada, yada. So they'll take Spiro, and Spiro is, can be, I don't know if it was just Spiro or also estrogen, but Spiro, they've found, can result in sodium loss. Sodium, I forget how they worded it, but they recommend to people that, like, who are on Spiro or what have you, to like increase their sodium intake, get some more salt in your body, because you lose it due to Spiro or what have you. And they think that might be why that some people crave, like, pickles or salty things or vinegary things. I thought that was super interesting. And then they go on to say that they did, like, their own trans case study. They posted on their Instagram that they, asked people, they said, quick little poll, who on hormones or just generally craves pickles, salty things, vinegary things. And there were people who had been through pregnancy who talked about it. There were people, trans feminine people taking estrogen and Spiro, who said that they were craving stuff. But there was also trans masculine people and people taking testosterone who were also craving salty, vinegary things and, like, pickles. And that's so funny to me, because I don't necessarily think that that's happened to me. Because I'm craving nothing. I'll talk about that in a second. But I've always craved, I always have liked salty things, especially sour things, vinegary things. I love pickles. But I wouldn't say that it's increased at all being on tea. It's sort of just always where it's at. Like, if there's a pickle, I'll probably eat it. But I'm not, like, dying to order pickles from Postmates because I need them. But what I will say is that I am craving, if anything, I said this in my Instagram post, I have never been a big red meat person. I'm mostly vegetarian in my day-to-day life now because I just don't crave meat. I like chicken, but it's so hard to make right. And so now that I make most of my own meals, I just, like, I really think I'm going to nail it this time, and then I make it, and I'm like, oh. Like, it just is like, this is just, it just tastes like chicken. You know what I mean? It doesn't, like, no one really likes the taste of chicken. It's like what you do to chicken that makes it taste good. Like, chicken on its own just tastes like nothing. You know what I mean? Like, it's, and then it's often, like, gummy. I just, I have such an issue with it. But, in theory, like, really good fried chicken, it's great. But I almost never have it, so, but lately, I was reading something the other day, and they were describing steak, like a really tender steak, and I was, like, salivating. I was, like, drooling. And I don't give a shit about steak. I really don't. Like, if it's the only thing there is to eat on a menu, and it's like really good. Like the one time I had it at the Blue Bayou restaurant in Pirates of the Caribbean at Disney World, it was like, or Disneyland, and it was the only thing like that I could eat on their limited menu, and I got it, and it tasted amazing. That doesn't mean I wake in the night craving a steak, you know, the gentle sweet caress of a steak. I don't, ever. But I was reading about the steak, and I was like, oh my god, like literally my mouth is filling with spit right now, like, which is also something that I've been reading a lot. You should, I implore you, it's just a fun little thing to do, I implore you to try and notice things that happen to you when you're hungry. And so one thing that can happen when you're hungry is you salivate. Like, I have a friend who says, oh yeah, I just drool. Like, I realize if I haven't eaten in a while, I just like, Blue Bayou is a solid restaurant, yeah. Fucking expensive as hell, but atmosphere, can't go wrong. It's literally inside the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. Look it up. Yeah, check out your hunger cues. Some people, you know, you get hangry. Some people get nauseated. I heard nauseous is not actually the right word for that. Apparently nauseous things are things that make you nauseated. The more you know. Yeah, but one thing that can happen is you can salivate. But anyway, I was salivating. So I was reading about the steak. Oh, hey! I was reading about this steak and just like frothing at the mouth. I was like, oh my god, that sounds so fucking good. And the minute later I was like, who am I? Like, I was like, I literally, since when? You know what I mean? Like, that was very odd. And so like we've been making a lot of like ground beef related things. We've been making like mushroom Swiss sliders and like tacos, you know, with ground beef, and it's, yeah, because I've craved it. Before I was like, okay, whatever, but now it's like, I need it. Also, eggs. Here's another really weird thing that I mentioned in my Instagram post, my most recent one, that I have never been a big egg person. If I like breakfast, but usually, you know, I have them scrambled. Like, I'm not an egg connoisseur. I feel like people who eat their eggs scrambled are seen as people who really don't care about the art of the egg, and sure, whatever. But I've never cared. And then the other day I was like laying awake in bed or something and was like, I just fucking want to dip toasted bread into raw egg yolk. And it was the most like, what do you call it? Like carnivorous thing I've ever thought. I was like, ugh. Like, raw yolk has literally never, ever appealed to me. I'm just like, ugh. But I realized I was like, oh, fuck, I'm craving protein. I'm not eating enough protein. Aw. Thanks, Johnny. Love having you here. So I was like, fuck, I'm not having enough protein. I'm not even gonna read that out loud. So that led to my breakfast thing, right? I went on a breakfast escapade and I was like making eggs. I made some like fried eggs. Like, I immediately went to YouTube and was like, teach me your ways. And I made like fried eggs and potatoes and sausage and toast. And I like dug the fuck in. And it wasn't even that good. And like, it was so sad because other people were like commenting on my post like, oh my god, this looks so good, blah, blah, blah. And it was, I'm sure, but my mouth, my taste buds were like, not that it wasn't good, but it just wasn't hitting any kind of spot. Does that make sense? Like, have you ever eaten when you weren't hungry? Or like you ate something like an hour ago and someone's like, oh, we're going to dinner, and so you have to go and like you're gonna eat something because you're there, but like you're not hungry, so you're like eating it and like you're like, okay, like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, you're just sort of like, okay, I might as well, like, okay, this is a thing. It doesn't taste bad. I'm not gonna be ill or anything like that. It was like that. It was like, okay, you know, and I tried like putting more salt and pepper on it. I put more hot sauce on it, and I just was like, and it was so sad. It was so sad. I spent like an hour preparing this glorious meal, and it just was like, it just was like, what's wrong with me? It's so, it just makes, it feels so weird. It feels so isolating. It feels so like, it feels so like, God, I'm different than everybody. No one is experiencing what I'm experiencing. And like, that's not necessarily true. It's just that, you know, it is more of a singular experience than other things. So like, you know, I did ask my friend, I was like, who's been on low dose tea for over a year now, and I was like, dude, have you been through this? Did this happen to you? And thank God, well, it wasn't thank God, but it was like, my friend was like, yeah, I experienced that the whole first year. Here I am almost 6 months on tea, and I'm thinking about a year from now, still like looking at food and hearing like, hello darkness, my old friend. Like, I'm like, ugh, because it's something you have to do all the fucking time. You have to eat all the time. You get hungry, and you have to feed yourself, and you do the thing, and it doesn't, and like, I'm a person who believes you should enjoy food. Like, I'm not at all a food is fuel person. Like, it is, but also it's enjoyment, and it's nice, and it tastes good, and like, you know, people are like, you shouldn't reward yourself with food. And I'm like, fucking whatever. Do what you want. Do what makes you happy. If you're craving something, it means you need something. That's just what it is. So like, for instance, if you have a sodium deficiency, you might be craving pickles because your body fucking knows it has salt in them. It actually was a thing that I figured out when I did my my high school thesis, my graduating thesis on PTSD. I read this study that talked about how, you know, people who have PTSD tend to have drug and alcohol addictions because your body is trying to self-medicate. It's trying to get back the things that your brain is missing, and so it's trying to give that to itself. Fucking, you know, and I'm trying to be this person. I've read Anti-Diet, and I read The Body Keeps the Score. I did read that, but that's not what I meant. The Body Is Not an Apology, and both those books are amazing, and I'm really trying to be gentle with my body and listen to it and give it what it wants, but right now it is just so hard to be at peace with my body when it's like, I'm hungry, feed me. And I'm like, okay, great, here, have all this fucking food, there's all this protein, anything you could ever want. It's seasoned within an inch of its life, and then I, you know, eat a few bites, and I'm like, eh. Like, what a fucking insult, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm doing this for you! It just, and the only thing that I can reliably eat now is carbs. Starch and carbs. So, fucking was just eating leftover sweet Hawaiian rolls the other day. Just, wow. Potatoes. Made some home fries. It was the only part of that breakfast that I was kind of sort of enjoying. I don't know. It's something about carbs, starches. I can eat those all day long. I don't understand it. I don't know. Just gonna check the time real fast. 12:40. Yeah, so it's really strange, and it's even more isolating. You know, I'm in all these groups and stuff on Facebook and whatnot, and I read all these things, and it's validating. It is to see these other people who are like, oh, me too. I go through the same things, but like, it doesn't feel like enough. You know what I mean? That's why I started like afternoon tea and all these things. I'm really trying to like get info out there, is because it just is so, it's normal. It really is normal, and there are so many people going through it, but so many people don't know about it, specifically cis people, and mostly not through fault of their own. It's just that they're not readily exposed to this information all the time. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just in their heads and in their feeds, and like, I think it needs to be more like, you know, I think it needs to be more like racism. Like, that can't, stay with me, that came out weird. What I'm saying is, it is not enough, you know, everyone's saying now, it is not enough to not be racist. We have to be anti-racist. So, like, you have to put effort in, you know what I mean? So, it's it's not just enough to be like, oh, I didn't know it because I don't search it out. You know what I mean? Like, I think we have to, like, search it out. We have, you know, because you have friends, you have family, you have people that you love who are going through things and experiencing things that you don't know about, and they are not always in a place to share it, or they don't feel like being an educator in that way. And like, I am often in a place where I have the spoons, I have the energy, and I have the willingness to talk about being trans all the time. I'm white, and that gives me a lot of privilege about what I can say about my transition, and it lets me get away with a lot of shit, and I'm aware of that. And so it allows me to be more open and talk about it, and say, like, you know, if you have questions, please ask me. But also to say, me asking you to ask me does not mean that every trans person is asking you to ask them. You know what I mean? And I would assume that of anyone whose experience differs from yours. It's not that they're not open or don't want to communicate with you, but it's just that, like, sometimes your life can't be all about informing people about just being you on a daily basis. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm so obnoxious about being trans and my transition and whatnot. Oh, I'm getting a phone call. No thanks. That's why I talk about it all the time. It's because I usually almost always have the space to talk, and am open to talking and want to talk. And so I put that out there. So that people can get information that they want and feel like they can be a better support system for people that they know and love, and, you know, but also, you know that not everyone you know in your life, you can just go up to them and be like, hey, talk to me about that thing that makes you a marginalized person. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a thing. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my hope with afternoon tea, is that, you know, it's not just for trans people, it's also for cis people, it's also for people who have absolutely no intention of questioning their gender. Like, you know, it's for everybody. I just want people to realize that, like, my life is a life, and there are a lot of hard things about it, but there are a lot of empowering things about it. Like, the fact that I have to take tea is sort of exhausting and annoying, but it's also, like, been a huge source of euphoria for me, because I'm in control of my body, and I have a say over my body, and am changing my body. Yeah, and so I just, you know, it's sort of that thing where, there was a quote in, I think I said this recently in another video, but there was a quote in, The Body Is Not an Apology, from someone else, I forget her name, but, Sonia Renee Taylor quoted this person, and they said, you know, this is a really massacred quote, but they said something to the effect of, like, if you are trying to help me because you feel pity for me, then don't waste your time. But if you are standing with me because you know that our oppression is the same, then yeah, I'm on board. And, like, that really resonates with me, because, like, you know, and I'll post that article, like I said, down below, about the person who was talking about ugliness and disability and whatnot, is that, like, you know, you can be able-bodied and still perpetuate ableism and stuff like that in ways that you never even thought about, because, for instance, like, you know, not prioritizing self-care and rest and recuperation. If you don't give yourself that, you can't give other people that. You see what I mean? So, like, all of our shit, it's the intersectionality thing. Everyone who's got shit, it's connected to other people's shit. You might not think it is, but it definitely is. Like, you and I, no matter what you have going on, is connected to what I have going on in some way. The same isms affect you that affect me, and that affect everyone else. So, like, we all gotta, like, be in this together. You know what I mean? And I'm doing it too. Like, I gotta do it too. Like, I'm trying to make myself engage in shit. I have a thing where I have hyperfixations, and if something is not in my hyperfixation, I cannot engage with it. And I'm trying to, you know, tweak that a bit. I'm trying to push myself and, like, read things and see things and approach things from a different way so that I can get myself an in. Like, for instance, I don't know if this applies to anyone else, but I was talking to my therapist about how I can't fucking read. I can't seem to read books unless it's like, I hated it in school, being forced to read books. But now it seems like I can't read unless I have someone who's saying, like, you need to read, like a book club, being like, you need to read for this date because we're going to talk about it. And then she was like, well, have you tried audiobooks? And I was like, no. Like, I was so, like, I don't know why I've been so opposed to them. It's basically ableist because in my brain it's like, oh, well, I have to read the book. You know, it's not, and she's like, well, you listen to podcasts. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I do listen to podcasts. So, you know, it's things like that. I know that I just went off on a rant. I really need to start doing my shot, but you know what I mean? It's just like, everything's connected. Everything's connected. I mean, gotta, like, think about it. You know what I mean? Anyway. Oh, I'm a mess. Yeah, so, again, feel free to comment, DM me if you want, about whatever. I'm actually pretty excited. I'll show you guys. So, as some of you know, I'm really big into sewing, and so I have this pouch that I sewed for all my tea supplies, but I just recently sewed, like, these little loops of elastic that I had left over that I pulled out of a pair of pants. And so they can hold my little vial of tea and my needles now, because it kind of like was giving me anxiety that it was all just rattling around in there, you know what I mean? So I made little loops. Yeah. But yeah, so how's everyone doing? I asked before and no one answered, so maybe someone will answer now. Or like, how do you feel about what I've said? Have you ever had that thing where you are hungry but can't eat? Have you? Also, what Band-Aid should I use today? Because I don't know. I have Batman, or not Batman, I have DC Heroes, a sugar skull, pizza, ice cream, and Shakespearean insults. Gotta love those. Also, just, I would like to, it kind of makes me anxious. God, everything makes me anxious. Oops, look great. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm nothing if not, my friend has constantly been saying utilitarian. It has to be utilitarian, and I think I'm also realizing that I'm a person who very much likes utilitarian things, where it's like, things gotta have order, and they gotta make sense, and they gotta have a place to exist. Not like people, but like, you know, items. Shakespeare. Love Shakespeare. DC Heroes. The thing is, I'm starting to think that DC Heroes is actually just Batman and Aquaman, because those are the only two that I can find. Every time I pull one out, it's Batman or Aquaman, and those aren't DC Heroes, those are Batman and Aquaman. Also, oh my god, y'all, have you watched Watchmen, the series Watchmen? Oh my god, it's so good. I put it off for so long, even though I love the book and the movie, because I heard mixed things about it, but oh my god. I'm so glad I fucking broke down like a little capitalist pawn and got HBO, because holy shit. Fuck. Okay. Sorry, I just had to have that moment. Sorry, I gotta get my life together here. Okay. I'm just throwing things. I'm so sorry. The audiobook resonates with me. Brain stuff. But yeah, focusing is having such... And you would think it would be easier being in lockdown and quarantine with no distractions, and boy, that ain't true. I distract myself enough. Yeah, see, Batman? Okay, I'll let, if someone else wants to vote to break the tie between DC and Shakespeare, that would be grand. So thank you all for being here again and spending the whole time here. An American Pickle. Oh, is that the, speaking of pickles, is that the one with Seth Rogen? And he, like, makes a pickle factory or something? There was part of me that was like, oh, maybe. And then another part of me that was like, eh. Ah, Shakespeare. I think we broke the tie with Shakespeare. Thank you. But yeah, I will check that out. Because now I have HBO, so HBO just has too much good shit that I can't fucking ignore them anymore, I guess. God, I'm a nightmare. I open one thing and then I move to something else and what have you. God, I hate the smell of an alcohol swab. It just feels so medicinal and awful. Oh, I also had my labs done last week, if anyone was interested, and they came back all clear. They tested my blood thickness and just my general T levels. And the blood thickness is good. It's under 55, which I guess is what they want. So that's cool. And then my T is at some random number. I mean, they told me, but like it doesn't mean anything to me. You know what I mean? He himself gets pickled? Are you kidding? What the fuck? Okay, I put this needle on too tight. I really want those fancy needles that you just push the thing down and the cap comes up, but apparently I don't get to have the good shit. Okay. Let me get my Band-Aid ready. Today's another right leg day. Thy breath stinks with eating toasted cheese. Wow, if this ain't me. Hard same. Thy breath stinks with eating toasted cheese. From Henry the Sixth, Part 2. Wow, amazing. Okay, so let's figure this out, where this goes on my body. Okay. Alright, that seems good to me. Right here, under these freckles. Okay. Nice deep breath. Take a nice deep breath with me. We all need it. Back to theater school we all go. Okay. Great. Good. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. That one didn't hurt this time. I think part of that has to do with I've been kind of wavering. I think I've been good lately about going fast. But sometimes I slip up. Couldn't even find the hole this time. I was like, where the fuck did I put it? Yeah, the key for me, it might be different for other people, but the key for me, I've realized, is I have to squeeze, squeeze around where I'm going to do the shot, and it's so scary, but you just have to go really fast, because then you just don't feel it. You might feel it still if you hit like a nerve or just like a little capillary or something on the way down, but generally, overall, I don't have pain if I just go and do it. But, obviously that takes a lot of courage, and I don't always have that in spades. It's ironic that you need to not have the worry of pain to do the thing that'll keep you from feeling pain. There's a metaphor there, I'm sure, about. Well, anyway, we've done it again, friends. Thank you so much for joining me. It really does mean a lot to me, even if it's only a few of you who spend your hour with me, and I'm so glad to have you. And I think this is the first video that, instead of just posting it immediately, I'm going to take it and download it and add the subtitles to it and then immediately upload it, because I need to stop adding to my backlog, because I keep looking at my backlog and going, I need to add subtitles, but oh my god, it's going to take me so long. So, starting with this video, I'm going to download it, subtitle it, and then re-upload it, because it'll make me feel better. Because I want to add subtitles and I want to make it more accessible. So, there we are. But yeah, thanks again so much, friends. I hope you are finding ways to take care of yourself in this very, very uncertain, strange time. I hope that you are finding ways to educate yourself, but also finding time for hobbies creativity if you can, you know, doing whatever you need in this time, because it is a time. And I know that that may be tone deaf for people who, you know, like for instance, racism has been going on forever. It's not that it's worse now. It's, you know, but yeah, we all just need to do our part and support each other and ourselves. So yeah, take care of yourself. Maybe go eat something. I might go make a smoothie, because even though I'm not hungry right now, if I wait, I will be. So, but yeah, love you guys. See you next week. Bye-bye.